why some people can't learn splits, and how long it actually takes to get down in full splits, coming right up.
Welcome back to ConfiBoost. As promised in our first video, we are actually getting back to you with the results. And if you missed our first video, we will link it down below so you can watch it afterwards. So, we have been doing splits day in and day out for the last 3 months. It's actually quite a lot, and we've been doing it on a daily basis to try to do it fully until the ground. And here you can see the results. As you can see, we did not manage to go all the way down, but there was a clear progress visible. From the start, when we were around 5.5 inches apart, and until now, we both got on average 4 inches closer to the ground. And actually, the last 1.5 months, there was practically no progress.
After doing some Googling and consulting with a professional trainer, we found out a lot of interesting and curious things about learning splits in our age and with our lifestyles. So, the questions we will answer are: number 1, how often you should do splits? Number 2, what type of muscle groups you should stretch? Number 3, what should you do if you are stuck with your progress? Number 4, can you ask someone to help you? Number 5, what you should do if your muscles are hurting next day? And number 6, can everyone learn splits? And if not, why? Number 1, how often you should do splits? If your aim is purely to stretch yourself, it's okay to do it every day. The same way as sitting for a long time in a static pose, it's recommended to stretch yourself so that the muscle will get the needed blood flowing, as well as your seated vertebral slits, for example, your backbone, where there are a lot of nerves. Therefore, it's very important to stretch or have a short walk after your sedentary job.
To stretch your muscle, restore the flow of your lymph, and also after long physical activities, it is needed to stretch the used muscle to avoid micro-traumas and injuries. But if you want to stretch your muscle so that it would become more flexible than it is needed for daily functioning, for instance doing splits, then the muscles are stretched over their physiological norm, and therefore the muscle gets injured the same way as doing strength exercises.
For this reason, stretching muscles to this extent is recommended to do 3 times a week to help your muscle recover and avoid having micro-traumas. The session and each pose you should hold for more than 10 seconds to get the best results. So here we already found out that we did the exercise completely wrong by doing it every day, once or twice a day, and with still feeling some pain. So don't do this at home. Number 2, what type of muscle groups you should stretch?
In order to be able to stretch a particular muscle, you also need to take into account the flexibility of the joints, that it would be possible to do the needed range of motion. The flexibility of joints determines whether people can do a particular rotation. For example, with elbow joints, it's easy for you to do a 360 rotation, or in our case, with these joints, to be able to do at least the 180 rotation. When thinking about doing splits, we do need to take into account also the daily routines of people nowadays, as they are used to working in a seated position for more than 8 hours a day, which brings us to the point that for many people, for example, shoulder joints are not as flexible to raise your hands up and hold them in this position for a long period of time. The same also for standing long hours. Regarding exercises, any exercise is suitable that allows you to overcome resistance in muscles. But what you really need to take into account is being mindful about pain. Exercises should not be painful, because then you are deliberately tearing your muscle fibers apart, and there is a risk of gaining different muscle traumas. So here we found out that all the exercises we did were actually right, and the only issue that we didn't check that much was the pain, and we did not check our joint flexibility from the start. But either way, we did well in this point.
Number 3. What should you do if you are stuck with your progress? As with everything in life, our mind and psyche gets used to certain events. Just like with physical activities, we adapt to doing them, and then this new reality becomes our muscle reference point. Also, in muscles and any other physical achievements, with time our muscles understand that this is no more a danger zone, and then the muscle starts to hypertrophy. In simple words, grow. But then again, at some point it remains constant, just as with stretching. When muscle understands that nothing else is happening to help it become more flexible, because it does not change in size, but changes in its flexibility, then you need to change the stretching exercise as well as take a pause to help your muscle change again the reference point. What is happening to it before you start to do the stretching exercises again. So first, you can change up your routine. You still need to focus on the same muscle groups, but to train them a bit differently. Second, you can try giving some motion to this existing routine, like a bit wiggling in the pose. This way, you will also train the adjacent muscle that may have been holding you back. And third, re-evaluate how often you are doing your stretches, as you also need to give your muscles some break in between the training sessions. Number 4, can you ask someone to help you?
There are some certain sports where this particular stretching method is being used. I mean, when someone is really pushing you down to make you go deeper in the stretch, like artistic gymnastics. But for these athletes, their career usually ends pretty quickly because they usually get many traumas, and also with becoming older, their bones ossify. They become harder, and therefore it is not possible anymore to externally influence them as much as when you are still growing and a child. With any external interference, traumas are inevitable. When exercising and taking heavier weights, the muscle gets traumatized the same way as when you're stretching with someone helping to push you down. Therefore, it is much better and safer to use your own body's weight to avoid these traumas and injuries, and with time, gradually making it down to the ground on your own.
Number 5, what you should do if your muscles are hurting next day? Muscle pain the same way as after any physical training happens because our appearing micro cracks in your muscles, or also because you have been working your muscles so much that when slitting ATF as a byproduct, lactic acid has developed and it accumulates in your fibers, and their density is different than in the fibers outside. Therefore, you feel pain. Basically, the best thing to do after physical activities is to have an active rest. This is when you are having a different kind of muscle activities to keep it working, but not to overwork it. This helps to keep the metabolism, mineral exchange, help your muscles rehabilitate quicker. A great example is after a hard leg day at the gym to have a light walk at the park next day. The same works with the stretching. After really hard and difficult stretching session, plan a rest day, especially if you are stretching some muscle groups that you weren't stretching before, or you are aiming for some special position. And number 6, can everyone learn splits? And if not, why?
Theoretically, if that is the goal and you have a very long time to develop this ability, then that is possible. But you need to take into account that for many people, because of seated lifestyles, they have developed different physiological restrictions. For instance, the hip bones have grown too close together and the vertebrae between them have ossified. For these people, it is impossible to learn splits, and with these exercises, they will just hurt themselves. There is no average time of how long it takes to do splits, but the older you are and the less active lifestyle you own, the longer it takes for you to do splits. Even for people in their 20s, it can take 9 and more years to do it. For some, it can be just 3 years, but this is almost impossible to do it in a short time frame. So here it goes. If we knew this before we started the splits challenge to learn splits in just a week or even a month, we wouldn't have gone so far and tried to actually do it, because now we know that it actually takes years and a lot of practice.
So in summary, if you want to learn splits, first check the flexibility of your joints and try to have as active lifestyle as possible.
Second most important thing that we learned: give yourself time. Depending on your age and your lifestyle, it can actually take years and a lot of devotion.
Tip number 3 that we have: plan your training sessions around 3 times a week and do a rest day in between.
Number 4, regarding exercises, we recommend you to check our previous video where we have our routine laid out fully. So we will link it down below so you can check it afterwards.
Number 5, if you are stuck, change up your routine. Change up your exercises and maybe even give yourself a bit of rest time so your muscles have a new reference point.
And finally, do not ask help from other people to hold you down in the stretching position you want to reach, and always try to avoid pain at all times. Give your body time to adjust to the position that you want to go into, and be patient.
Thank you for watching, and if you like this video, don't forget to give us a thumbs up and leave a comment below what challenge we should do next. And of course, if you are new to the channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe button below for more beauty and lifestyle tips and tricks. See you next week. Bye!